there are ways to tell the truth which are appropriate, and then there are ways to tell the truth that are inappropriate. Meaning, of course, if you're in pain, you're going to be a little bitter, you're going to be a little resentful, you're going to feel that inclination, you're going to be upset. You're in pain, for God's sakes. Ha ha ha. You will be finding enjoyment in toothache next. You cry with a laugh. Well, even in toothache, there is enjoyment. I answer. I had toothache for a whole month, and I know there is. In that case, of course, people are not spiteful in silence, but moan. But they are not candid moans, they are malignant moans, and the malignancy is the whole point. The enjoyment of the sufferer finds expression in those moans. If he did not feel enjoyment in them, he would not moan. It is a good example, gentlemen, and I will develop it. Those moans express, in the first place, all the aimlessness of your pain, which is so humiliating to your consciousness, the whole legal system of nature on which you spit disdainfully, of course, but from which you suffer all the same while she does not. They express the consciousness that you have no enemy to punish, but that you have pain. That is a reading from Notes from Underground, which is my favorite book, and I'll have to read it again. And the reason I read that is I just recovered from a sore throat, which is why this episode is coming out on a Wednesday, not a Tuesday. I could not talk for 2 days. And whenever we experience pain, through sickness, or normally it's sickness, but sometimes it's like an injury, we're kind of forced to face one of the hard realities of life, and it's that it's often painful. It's just unpleasant. There's unpleasantness in life. And whenever I'm sick, I always think to this idea from Dostoevsky in Notes from Underground, where he says, we can even find pleasure in having a toothache. And he's not saying this as a stoic. He's not saying, if you have the right perspective, you can feel joy from having pain. No, what he's saying is, when you're a particularly spiteful and bitter individual, you can find joy in, let's say, making your pain well known to the world, in complaining, essentially, in moaning, in agony. And Dostoevsky says, if you didn't enjoy complaining, I'm paraphrasing, if you didn't enjoy complaining, you wouldn't do it. And so that word complaining, you think about it, a lot of people when they're sick, they complain. A lot of people complain when they're at work about a particular thing. But it's a very strange thing, because why would we complain about something if we weren't getting some kind of satisfaction out of it? That's Dostoevsky's point here. It's like you say, you're complaining, you're upset about something, but there's some kind of weird enjoyment about you complaining. And you think about it, if it was a painful thing, for you to complain was a painful thing, you wouldn't do it. And so we like to complain. We like to moan in agony when we're in pain, extra loud when people are nearby. We like to cough loudly in meetings so that everyone knows that we're sick. And, we're all going to face these times. I think, I don't know what it is on average, but we all get sick 2 to 3 times a year, some more than others. But we're faced with this pain, essentially, this agony. And as opposed to just feeling it, we like to spread it out. We like to share it. We like to force it on other people. And it appeals to our bitterness. It appeals to our resentment. Firstly, about pain in and of itself, but then about life. Because the strange thing is that in the same way that we like to moan and groan about any pain we experience, let's say in the moment, there's also something much deeper, which is existential pain, which is really what Notes from Underground is about, existential pain. And so when it comes to complaining, we can get into these habits of complaining because we're not satisfied in our life. Like, I'm sure you can think of a person in your life who, whenever you're talking to them, they're always complaining about something. There's something bothering them all the time. And they wouldn't be doing that if they were existentially okay. They wouldn't. They just, like, you wouldn't do that. People who are suffering are the ones who are complaining, and they find enjoyment in that because when you're suffering, you're in a state of bitterness and resentment. You have to be. That's the definition of suffering. Resentment is the opposite of gratitude. Gratitude is, I am going to be thankful for each and everything that I have in my life. Resentment is, I'm not going to be happy with anything. And not only am I not going to be happy, but I'm going to be bitter about the stuff that I don't have. I'm going to be jealous. And so, in the same way that we complain about small physical pains, we complain existentially and find enjoyment out of that on a really deep level. Now, we all, let's say, feel a little bit of relief or joy when our pain gets acknowledged, or when we complain, we get a little bit of enjoyment out of it. But the funny thing is none of us like to hear other people complain. So we know on some level that it's annoying to other people, but we do it. And the reason we do it is because it's enjoyable, because it appeals to our bitterness and resentment. And so, what to do? Existential. Excuse me. See, that's my throat. Yeah, I'm suffering right now. Existentially, that's the bigger question. But let's start with the pain thing, as someone who's going through it right now. So, let me walk you through this. For 2 days, I had a really, really bad throat. But there's still work to do. I still have a job to do. And so I'm on the phone quite a bit with my job. I'm driving, I'm talking to people, talking to my team. And obviously that's not fun and it sucks. But like, what do you do? I know there's an option of what to do. You can be an asshole to everybody who calls you. That's not fun for anyone. Though it might be a little fun for you. But I do know that there's other options as well. And one of the options is that you just deal with your own suffering and you do your job. You go through the pain. And sometimes that's not the right answer because if you got a really bad throat infection, sometimes that can permanently damage your throat. So that might not be the right answer. Maybe you have to take a sick day. But ultimately, that's the question. Like, what is the best response here with my given circumstance? And the best response could be you suffer in silence and you do your job. You do your duty for the world. And here's another option. Maybe as opposed to just shutting the hell up and doing your job, maybe you tell people, hey, just so you know, I got a sore throat, so let's try and keep the conversation quick. That's another option. You could say it kindly. You don't have to be doing it so that people feel pity for you or anything like that. You can just say that. You just be honest. Listen, I got a sore throat. Let's chat. Let's keep it quick. In the same way, you can take that and you can expand that out to life overall when it comes to existential suffering. I mean, we all suffer existentially, and there's ways to deal with that. I mean, firstly, a lot of people just suffer in silence. They do the self-work. And I don't want to say be alone and don't talk to anyone about your suffering, because that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is a lot of people can deal with, the memento mori, remember you will die, the feelings of death, the fear of death, all this stuff through philosophy, through reading, through journaling. Hey there. Let me thank you for being a listener to this ad-free podcast. If you enjoy the podcast, there are a few things you can do to help me out. A 5-star review on Spotify or wherever you're listening to this really does help, and it's free. You can also sign up for my Substack newsletter or Patreon. Substack free gets each episode emailed to you along with the transcripts in the form of an article. You'll also get access to my live talks, followed by a Q&A afterward. Substack Premium supporters and my patrons on Patreon get access to the recordings and a brief article of those Q&A sessions, access to full episodes of the Paradoxically Speaking podcast, my Steps to Success interview series, Stoic meditations, and much more. Links to Substack and Patreon can be found in the show notes. But again, that's not the only response. That's a response, and it's a good one. Another one is in the same way that you tell people, hey, listen, I got a sore throat. Maybe, just so you know. I don't want to complain about it. I'm just letting you know I'm going through a bit of pain right now, and I might not be able to talk as loudly. In the same way, we can say that to people around us. We don't have to complain about things. I got a sore throat today. My God, I can't talk. I got to do this job, and everyone keeps calling me. That doesn't help. That doesn't help anything. In the same way, you could complain about life. You can complain about the fact that you're going to die. Oh, screw this life, blah, blah, blah. Get really bitter and resentful. Or you can say, hey, listen, I got some stuff I'm dealing with. And just so you know. And maybe you have a conversation about it with someone. Maybe you kind of work through that with someone. The point I'm trying to make is that there are ways to tell the truth which are appropriate, and then there are ways to tell the truth that are inappropriate. Meaning, of course, if you're in pain, you're going to be a little bitter, you're going to be a little resentful, you're going to feel that inclination, you're going to be upset. You're in pain, for God's sakes. But you don't have to complain. You can tell people what you're going through, and they can help you through it. But you don't have to complain. There's a real big difference here. And the difference is in your intentions. What are my intentions? Am I taking joy in telling everyone what I'm going through? Or is it relieving? Does it make me feel more open, more part of my own nature? And so that's the question. One of the hardest things about this whole philosophy thing is you really, you have to know yourself really well. And knowing yourself is really knowing your intentions. So when you get an impulse to complain, to share, to be vulnerable, whatever it is, the intention has to be appropriate. And if the intention is appropriate, everything else just flows naturally from that. It's really quite simple. So what do you do when you're suffering? There's things you can do, man. There's things you can do. There's things you can do, just you. You can do some self-work. And then there's things that other people can help you with. Maybe you don't even need to have a sore throat. Maybe if you didn't tell anyone that you had a sore throat, you wouldn't even know that, hey, there's a medicine over here that'll work. So don't be afraid of sharing. Don't be afraid of discussing what you're going through and the pain you're experiencing with other people. But be very careful that you don't become a complainer, because those are two very different things. And you know this because you know the friend that complains versus the friend that is truly suffering and just asking for help.